So what is Trump doing in regards to stopping the war between Russia and Ukraine? He seemingly locked the president of Ukraine out of the negotiations. He called Zelensky a dictator for declaring martial law and suspending elections. And Trump appeared to say that Ukraine started the war, which is wrong. So, what are we to take away from all this? Well, let's start with Trump's words that have gotten all this attention.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down.
I think he misspoke when he said the part about starting it, because he was talking about making a deal to end the war. I believe he was trying to say that the war should have never really started because they could have made a deal early on. As someone whose words don't always come out right, I can relate. Now, I'm not sure this is going to be a popular take, but here's what I think is happening. Trump knows that Zelensky actually has no say in the negotiations. I know that sounds like it can't be right, but he really doesn't. He does have to agree to a deal, but he has no leverage to negotiate a deal. You see, without the United States' support, the entire country of Ukraine would be taken over by Russia if that's what Vladimir Putin wanted. The negotiation is between us and the Russians. I think it's likely Trump is operating under this understanding and doing whatever he can to make a deal. And if that means saying unpopular things about Zelensky, so be it. Trump understands power dynamics. You have to when negotiating any kind of a deal. Imagine I'm selling a car that has a Blue Book value of $10,000. If I'm in no hurry to sell it, a cash offer of $5,000 wouldn't be considered. Now imagine that I need a few $1,000s today, or I'm going to lose my house. If the $5,000 is the only offer I get, I'm taking it. And if I'm the guy making the offer, I might use that leverage and offer less. In any kind of negotiation, the power dynamics have to be understood. And I feel like all the people up in arms about what Trump has been saying don't understand that. Ukraine is about to lose funding for the war, so time is of the essence. With less money and weapons coming from the United States to support them, they will not be able to outlast the enemy. Essentially, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You see, the Biden administration set unrealistic goals for the end of the war, which was Ukraine getting all of their land back and defeating Russia. Now, I know Biden's handlers knew that wasn't possible, which speaks to what they were really advocating for, which is what Mitch McConnell spoke about a year and a half ago.
No Americans are getting killed in Ukraine. We're rebuilding our industrial base. The Ukrainians are destroying the army of one of our biggest rivals. I have a hard time finding anything wrong with that. I think it's wonderful.
The Washington establishment sees this war as a way to make money through selling arms to Ukraine. That's the part they will say out loud. They're also making money through laundering and political donations as well. There are tens of billions of dollars that were designated for Ukraine that have gone unaccounted for. That's a problem. And it's a big problem when you take into consideration the focus this administration has on cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. The bottom line is this. Negotiating an end to the Russia-Ukraine war comes down to an agreement between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. That's it. Ukraine has to ultimately agree to the deal, but they have no leverage to negotiate a deal because they can't take on Russia by themselves. Now, if Europe steps up and starts supporting Ukraine with a lot of money and arms, the situation would take on a different dynamic. But how it stands now, it's Trump and Putin who have to come together on a deal. Any comments from Trump that seem to insult Zelensky may be a part of the deal-making process. Maybe Trump called Zelensky a dictator so that he can use Zelensky agreeing to allow an election to happen after a ceasefire as part of the deal. And maybe that puts more pressure on Zelensky to agree to such a deal. Because we have to remember the goal. It's not to make Ukraine whole again, because that's impossible. The goal is ending the bloodshed. But what about Putin? He's an actual dictator. Why doesn't Trump call for fair elections in Russia? Because that would hinder us in achieving the goal. We have to stay focused on what we're trying to attain, and that is stability and peace in the region. While the swamp in D.C. might think hundreds of thousands of Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dying in an endless war is a good thing, I can assure you it's not. A deal needs to be made as soon as possible, and Trump will say what he has to say and do what he has to do to make it happen. And that's the simple truth.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. And if you all want to support this channel, check out the links in the description, and let's keep putting some common sense back into the great debate.